What we're going to do in this video is cover square menu building, and this also applies to Clover systems, it applies to other point of sale systems, but I'm going to focus on Square because that's my area of expertise. We'll get right into it. Firstly, we have to understand option sets, options, variations, modifier sets, and modifiers. And I want to be clear, if you get stuck, just search this name, Appaloosa Tech. You can give me a call or a text or email if you have any questions. This is the first thing we have to understand. This is what everything is based on. Everything is based on this concept. Now, I'm going to link a whole video I did previously. It's more of a retail example, but it gets the point across really well if you're struggling with these concepts. But basically, option sets are sets full of options, so they nest into each other. So an option set might be proteins right here, and then the options inside of it would be chicken, steak, veggie in this example. Same thing with base. We have the base option set, which is rice, salad, and lentils. And then what this does, as the visual depicts, it pushes into variations, and it multiplies across each option set. And then we started with 3 of each, now we multiply across and we get 9. And so this multiplies across each. And so now we have a chicken and a rice option right here. We have a steak and salad option right here, steak and salad, let's say, and we have one for each of these. This is what our option sets and options and variations do. They work together. Now you can create variations without the option sets, without options, and we can create option sets and not have, so like we could exclude steak plus salad if we wanted in the Square library or in the spreadsheet, but typically this is how it works. Lastly, we have modifiers. Modifiers work differently. They're just completely separate. Variations, we have inventory tracking. Modifier sets and modifiers, we do not. We can still set a price on the modifiers, as you see here. This one's 50 cents, let's say. This one's $1. We can still set a price, but there's no stock tracking. That's the key difference. So for something like extra lettuce, we're not keeping track of that in the back end, but we might keep track of our steak or salad or something like that. But especially the inventory applies to a retail example, but we're focusing on food. Now let's talk specifically about option sets and options. Option sets and options are accessible via the item library, where we type each option into the option set. They're also accessible in the spreadsheet when we want to create or edit, of course. We can manually create and edit them in the spreadsheet based on what you want in the item library. And then they're used for top level choices. That is key. This is the primary choice for an item. That might be the protein, that might be like the bowl versus the wrap. I call that the shape. Something that is the top level first choice for the customer. It's not going to be what toppings do you want. It's not going to be something like that that's far down the list of narrowing them into exactly what they want. This is used typically with 1 to 2 option sets. I like to do 1 for simplicity, but we can do 2. Most customizations, we're going to end up using the modifiers, which we'll talk about in just a second. And I'm going to go back over all this and show you where it is in Square, where it is in the spreadsheet, all of that. Next, we'll talk about our variations. Now, variations, as you see visually here, are built out of the options and option sets. Let's talk specifically about these real quick. These are accessible in the item library, of course. They're created based on option sets and options, or we can create them manually without the option sets and options. They're also accessible in the spreadsheet. We create those again manually. They're not done automatically like in the item library. And we use these for, again, top level choices. That's the primary and secondary choices. And 1 to 2 options, which creates our variations. The biggest thing we want to talk about, though, in menu building, the most important thing is modifiers and getting these modifiers right. This is not easy. So Modifiers are accessible, of course, in the item library. We put each modifier into a modifier set. In the spreadsheet, we can't create modifier sets or add modifiers to the sets. We can only assign a modifier set to an item. We use these for all other choices. Everything that's not in the variation, and very little is actually in the option sets and variations, so everything lives in the modifiers, pretty much. And lastly, we use them for specialty item removals. Let's talk more about that. Specialty item removals. Let's say we have an item called the Build Your Own Boss Bowl. All right, we have an option, a variation, chicken and rice that we can select, and then we connect that to our modifiers for, say, salsa and add-ons. Obviously, we're going to have one for toppings, we're going to have multiple other ones, but in this example, we want to keep it simple. Say we have salsa and add-ons. We connect that, no problem. They can make all of their custom selections. Some of them add a price, like the cheese and the guac. Some of them don't, but we're only connecting it to the modifier sets, and that's all we're doing. But let's say we have Bill's Boss Bowl. Bill is the founder of Baco, whatever, our taco place. And Bill's Boss Bowl comes with a variation, of course, chicken and rice, let's say, but then we connect it, of course, to the modifier sets. But then it comes with these default options. We've told the customer Bill's Boss Bowl, the way he loves his Boss Bowl, is lettuce, onion, pico, sour cream, jack cheese, and cilantro. That's how Bill likes his Boss Bowl. This is a specialty item. This is what I call a specialty item, at least, as compared to a build your own item. That's all the customer selecting everything. This is the specialty item. How do we deal with this? Well, there's two ways to deal with this. The best way, however, is to create a specialty item removal modifier set. We can name it according to the item name, we can name it something else, as long as we can keep track of it, keep it all straight. And then inside of that, we add no lettuce, no onion, no pico, no sour cream, no jack cheese, no cilantro, select unlimited, no minimum, no maximum, select whatever you want, no prices. And this allows people to remove what they don't want, and then on the add-on side and the salsas and all of that, they can add what they do want. And of course, we connect that over here. Another cool thing we can do in Square is make modifier pre-selections. So let's say that Bill's Boss Bowl, the main price is $10. That's the price of the variation that you have on here, the chicken plus rice. And then let's say we make a pre-selection, and I'll show you how to do this in a minute. But let's say we make a pre-selection of mild salsa, lettuce, pico, and cilantro. What this will do for the customer is it will show them now a different price. It'll show them the additions. It'll show them that base price, $10, plus the 50 cents for the lettuce, right here, and the 50 cents for the pico, right here. And then the cilantro and the mild pre-selections are free, so they won't show a price increase. And then this will make the total price $11. But what happens if they unselect the lettuce and select blackened corn instead? So in this instance, the price would be adding just the pico. So the pico is 50 cents, but the blackened corn is free. So now it's just showing $10.50 as the price. This is the only potential problem with the modifier pre-selections. And what this does with the specialty item removals is it allows us to, instead of creating a modifier set to unselect items that are in this list, it allows us to have all of the toppings from all of the different items, the different combinations, the specialty bowls, whatever, all of them can go in the same modifier sets of toppings, maybe add-ons, salsa, whatever you call them, and then we can make pre-selections that will increase or decrease the price. This doesn't always work for every business, but understanding this concept is very helpful in menu building and understanding what's possible with the menu. Lastly, I want to show you how to do all of this inside of Square. We'll start at the very beginning with options, option sets, variations, everything. We'll go through this and I'll show you where all of it is in Square. So this is accessible in the item library and the spreadsheet. I want to show you how that works. We're going to go into a Square account and do this in the item library. So in the Square dashboard, we're at home, and now we're going to go to items and services. Keep in mind this might look a little different for you. We're going to go to items and services, items, and then item library. And we're going to create these items and variations. We're going to create all of this. So let's go and do create item. And then we're going to call this the boss bowl, because this isn't Bill's boss bowl, but it's just the boss bowl. Boss bowl. We're going to now go down and we can put this in the appropriate categories, of course. But I'm going to focus on the options right here. We'll click add. We'll search for option sets, and if we have an option set for it, then we can use that, of course. But if not, then we'll add one. So I'll add one called base, and then we'll add our options to it. Base has rice, salad, and lentils. And we're actually going to add another option set right here below. We're going to call it protein, and I don't have one for that, so we'll do protein. And then we will have chicken, steak, and veggie. All right, and then we will click next, and then you see this multiply out like we discussed. We have 3 bases, 3 proteins, and it multiplies across to 9. 3 times 3 is 9, of course. So now we see rice chicken, rice steak, rice veggie, salad chicken, etc., etc. And then we'll do create 9 variations. Now we need to set our price. Now I'm going to just say chicken, let's say, is $10, the steak $12, and the veggie is $8. So we'll go down and we'll do 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, and 8. And then we can add unit costs, we can add weights, and these aren't relevant really for our food items, but we can add an online sale price, which can be below the normal price, or it could be above the normal price. And the behavior for this is, if it's below the normal price, it'll show the sale badges and everything that's enabled for that. If it's above the normal price, it will say nothing. And so that's for if you need to add $1 or $2 to an item to recoup some of the online ordering costs or in packaging and all of that, you can do that right here. But I'm going to ignore that for now because we're focusing on the menu aspects. So that was really easy. We added our options, and we can add individual photos to the variations if we want. And next, I want to show us how to do that in the spreadsheet. Same thing. Now I downloaded my spreadsheet already. I have another video of how to do that. That's in there. I always remove this top row because it's just white space and it makes it harder to do filtering if we want to. And it also makes it harder to go to view and do freeze top row. So then we can always see the column titles. And I am going to go to the very bottom, and in item name, I'm going to put boss bowl. And we're going to keep putting in boss bowl over and over and over. We're going to multiply this down, 9 times. So we'll see if that's 9 of them. I think that's 1 extra actually. I can just do the count. I'm being silly. Here we go. Alright, now what we're going to do is add our prices and our variations and our item types, all of that information. But first, what we're going to do is add our option information. And we're going to scroll over to option. Here we go. We have option name 1, option value 1, option name 2, option value 2. So we're over here, we're going to make sure that we navigate this appropriately. Here we go. And what can be helpful too is to add a color, which doesn't affect any of the data, but we can just add, say, a green color so that we can see all the cells we're working with. So this is the first cell we're working with, and we want to find options again. Here we are, option name 1, option value 2. Okay, so then this would be base all the way down, and then we have first our rice, salad, lentils, and then we're going to copy that, paste it again, and then for the next one we will have protein, we will have then copy this down all the way, and then we will have chicken, steak, veggie, and then we will do the same thing here. We will copy this down, and basically what we're doing here is we're manually building this out in the spreadsheet. This might be annoying, but sometimes it's useful. If you're really good at Excel, guess what? You can do this a whole lot quicker than clicking through here and creating it and all of that. Unless, of course, you have it already created in Square, in which case that's likely going to be faster. But we're going to ignore that for now. We're just showing you how to do this. So chicken is what we said, $10, $12, $8. And then we can paste, and then we'll go over here. And what I like to do in the variation name is this. I do a formula, I do equals, and then I select this option value cell. We'll do rice, and then we're going to put in and then we're going to do a comma space inside of quotes and then we'll select chicken, and then we will hit enter. And if I did this right, which it appears I did not, yes, I put too many and symbols. So there we go. I'll show you the corrected formula. This is just and we don't put spaces in between. We select the cell, and symbol, quotes to put a comma space, and then and symbol, select again. And this names the variation rice, comma chicken, which is what we want. And then if we copy this down, it's going to say salad, steak, lentils, veggie. It's going to copy it down, and it should do our series correctly. Yes, that looks right. So then we should end up with, I see what I did wrong. So one of these needs to be rice, 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 and then we need salad, 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 and then we need lentils, 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 and then that will show us correctly. This is what it should look like. Rice chicken, rice steak, rice veggie, salad chicken, salad steak, salad veggie, and so on. And the spreadsheet, that's a perfect example. I spend all kinds of time in the spreadsheets and in Square. Just be very careful in the spreadsheet because it is really powerful, but it is easy to mess things up. So then we have all of our unique information in here. And then I want to show you how to attach the modifiers after I show you this. First, we will copy down. So like, here we go. We want to copy down prepared food and beverage. Okay, this is all prepared food and beverage. This should all be visible online. This should be a no for shipping, a yes for self-serve ordering, yes for delivery, yes for pickup, and then we will copy that down. And so a lot of these cells get copied down from other cells because they have the same values. Auto add item to ticket. We actually want to set this to no, because that means in the point of sale, if you just click on it, it'll just add it without popping up asking for more information. But we do want more information most of the time on these. And then we have our location. So enabled Amigos Downtown, and these are all testing locations, but we'll say yes. We'll say yes, just these two locations for simplicity, and we'll copy that down. Now, one of the things I want to show you is the modifiers in the spreadsheet. Now, the only thing we can do with modifiers in the spreadsheet is say yes or no. We can't make pre-selections, we can't do any of the fancy stuff, we can't set our limits unless that's already set on the modifier set level, but we can just say yes or no. So I'm going to say no across the board for these, because these are not the correct modifier sets that I want to enable on them. But if I had created my modifiers and then downloaded the spreadsheet, I could enable them, but again, can't do the pre-selections. Now, let's go back over into the spreadsheet, into Square, into the dashboard, and see how we manage the modifiers and modifier sets. So we're going to move forward. We went over item library and spreadsheet for options and option sets. We also went over this for variations, item library and spreadsheet. We create them manually. We saw all of this and what they're used for. And now we're going to get into our modifier sets, item library and spreadsheet. Now, I just showed you in the spreadsheet we can assign modifier sets to items, but we can't create the sets of the modifiers in the spreadsheet. So we're going to go back into the item library. We're going to pretend that we've uploaded this back into the item library, which is very easy. I'll save this and I'll briefly show you how that can be done. You just go up here to Actions, Import Library, and then you drag your file into here, or you can click here and select an item from File Explorer, and then don't check this on. That will replace literally everything in your item library with what is contained in the spreadsheet, which means no pictures, no pre-selections, nothing. Only what's in the spreadsheet will exist in Square if you flip this switch on. So you almost never want to do that. You click next, next, and then it imports it. Now I'm going to go back to our boss bowl. I'm focusing on the menu building because a lot of the modifier power is still only inside of the Square dashboard. And we're going to go down to our modifiers. We have our options. We'll go to our modifiers. Here we are. And we will go through our example. So they're used for all other choices, etc. We're going to show us all of our information. And yes, here we go. So we're going to create it as toppings with a pre-selection. I'm going to show you both, and I'm not going to remove them because this isn't a real menu, but I'm going to show you how it all works. So when we do add modifiers, we don't get to create modifier sets. We just do, boop, we select modifier set. So I'm going to save this item. I already saved it. And then I'm going to X out of here. I'm going to go over to modifiers. And then I'm going to create modifier. We're going to create salsa, mild, medium, and hot. Salsa. This is a list. And now you have a couple of options here. You can name this differently for the kitchen. So if you want to call this something else, you want to call it the green cantina, whatever, something called salsa, you can do that for the customer. But then on the back end, you can just say mild, or you can say green, or you can say verde, or you can say whatever you want, so that it makes more sense. But if the kitchen people know what mild means, then there's no need to do that. We can set a price, and we can actually set a price for each location. So if we want to say we set a price of $1 here, and then we want to edit at a location, we'll add an override, maybe at the Amigos East side, we want it to be $1.50 for some reason, then we can add that price override, no problem. I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to remove the price because that fits our example. We'll have a list modifier. The other option we have, well, we have a couple more options, but the main option is we have customer can only select one. This isn't necessarily useful for this, but within our example, this says select one, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do select one. And then down here we can see all of our location options, and we can enable and disable for different locations. I will click save, and then I will find the next one, add-ons, okay. Add-ons, and 1, and this will automatically correct if we just put our numbers in. The customers can select unlimited, and so we're not going to deal with that. And then it's enabled at all locations. And we can do conversational modifiers because that just makes more sense for us. So we'll find our salsa actually and turn that back on. I believe this is down here. We will turn this on. Here we go. And then I will create another modifier set called toppings for our specialty item removals example. We'll create toppings. And then the customer is allowed to select as many as they want. We'll make it conversational. And then we'll click save. And then we will add the Bills Boss Bowl modifier set. Bills Boss Bowl, Bills Boss Bowl. No jack cheese, I got them slightly out of order. No jack cheese, but we can fix that by moving this up one. And there we go. So now we have all the no options, all the removals. We'll not turn that on, we'll do that. So then we'll click save. Now we're gonna go back to our Boss Bowl, which we're just gonna imagine this is our Bill's Boss Bowl option, right? Or this could be actually our BYO Boss Bowl. And then what we're going to do over here on our BYO Boss Bowl is add all of our modifiers. We'll do add-ons, we'll do salsa. There we go, and we'll do toppings. Just have it called toppings. Done. And then we can rearrange them if we want to. So we want them to select their salsa first, toppings, salsa, add-ons. That's fine. Okay, we're happy with that. And then if we want to make a pre-selection for them, the way we handle that is clicking the 3 dots right here. So this is where we're going to start our pre-selections. So where we make our pre-selections, like in our example. The way we do that is we click here, the 3 dots, we click customize. It asks us to save the item because we did make changes. And then we have the option right here to set required number, so we can make them select up to, as little as 0 and up to the number of modifiers that are here. Same here, maximum 0 to the number of modifiers here. We can also pre-select right here. So that means it'll add that into the price, and it will by default be selected on the front end. The other option we have is to hide it on scroll line. So this is if something is internal only or something like that, we can just not show it to the customer and on scroll line. But this option, we're not doing any pre-selection. So we'll just click done. It'll open up the item again for us, and then believe we're done. And we want to make sure that we have this right. We'll put this on Amigos Grill sales channel, make sure it's set to visible. It's not a pre-order, no quantity limits. Fulfillment methods we want to edit, we don't want shipping, we want these 3. Item prep time is based on the location, it doesn't contain alcohol. Search engine we'll leave alone, but those are just a couple of item changes you would need to make. Now for a restaurant, I have everything enabled in this account, but for a restaurant, we would just see, we would have the default fulfillment method set already to pick up local delivery and self-serve ordering and not shipping. So that shouldn't be an issue. Additionally, in the restaurant version, we can also call this something else for the kitchen. For the item level, for the modifiers, we're going to save this and actually go create bills possible. So we're going to create a new item, bills possible, and we're going to actually do the pre-selections. Bills possible. We'll just go over to categories. We put in our category, and then we would set prepared food and beverage. Very good. Okay, set our price. Base price is $10, and then this has a bunch of retail stuff enabled for it in Google, but we're going to skip down to our modifiers and add toppings. I'm going to add it both ways. We're going to add toppings, we're going to add salsa, and we're going to add add-ons. Add-ons right here. Done. Then we're going to click the three dots, click customize. It'll ask us to save. We save it. We pull this up. We pre-select mild salsa, and this is set to only let them select one, which is fine. Now this pre-selection doesn't force this selection, it's just pre-selected. So they can uncheck this and check a different one on the front end while they're ordering if they want. We click save. Then we're going to add our toppings, which I don't know if I have all of the right options in there, but we're going to customize and we're going to pre-select. We have lettuce, onion, pico, sour cream, cilantro, but not blackened corn. And then we will save that. And then we will actually go to add-ons because that's where our cheese is. So we'll select cheese and save. And then that's how now this item is set up. Now the other way that we discussed is we don't have any of this, or maybe we have add-ons, we have where you can add stuff, but then let's click edit here. And we're going to find the bills, it's right here, bills possible right here. We would just select this. We don't have to do anything with this. This is just a no. If they don't want something that's included by default, then they're allowed to unselect it essentially. Now, the way that these two work is this maintains the price, and then these would only add to the price. This way would decrease the price if you have add-ons. So like the cheese costs 50 cents, so that would decrease the price by 50 cents. So it depends how you want to set this up, and you can do a combination of these. You can not do any pre-selections, or you can just pre-select your salsa because that's already free, and then you just do no for the specialty things, and you don't have to say no salsa or something. They would just unselect the salsa. So this is how we build out the menu. We use our modifiers, and we use our variations, and we build it out so that it works well for us, so that it fits our business, so that it fits the food that we're selling, so that people can customize it appropriately. So I hope this helps. I know it's a long video, but I do hope this helps, and I hope I explained it well, and let me know if you have any questions.